Welcome back to the Brits Don't Jump podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Doyle, and today we've got a special extra bonus episode for you. Ahead of March Madness, we're going to be running through the NCAA women's side, and I cannot wait to talk about this one. And I've got a very special guest, the athletic women's basketball writer, Sabreena Merchant. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
No, I'm excited to have you. It's like I said before the podcast, I don't get to often talk about the NCAA, so for me this is going to be an absolute breeze, so I can't wait to see your insight and see what you think about what's going on.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so the way we normally start, Sabreena, we'll start with a basketball journey in Britain, but obviously because of football and that over here, it's very different, it's very tribal, but obviously over in the States, it's different again because there's so many sports. I would just like to know how you got into basketball itself, and how did you get into the writing side of it?
Yeah, so my dad immigrated to the United States in the 1980s and moved to Los Angeles, where the Los Angeles Lakers were a big deal, Showtime, and that's sort of how he became adapted to American culture, was becoming a big Laker fan, a big NBA basketball fan, and that was something he passed along to me and my brother. So we grew up big Los Angeles Laker fans, big basketball fans, and when the WNBA came here, then I started rooting for the Sparks, and basketball has just been a through line through my family, through my entire life. And when I went to college, I wrote for the student newspaper. I also went to a pretty big basketball school at Duke. It's one of the bigger basketball schools in America. Sorry, I don't know what audience I'm speaking for here, but it was a very big deal when I was, it was a very big deal when I was in college. So being able to write about that program inspired me to want to write about basketball full-time, and that's basically the genesis of how we got where we are.
Well, no, that works well because I've spoken to someone from Duke before, the assistant coach, Kyra Elsie, so the audience should, if they've been listening, they should know exactly how big Duke are, especially, obviously on the men's side, they've had some pretty big players go through and get drafted, and now this year with Cara Lawson in charge of the women's team, it seems like obviously they started slow, but they haven't, in which we'll touch on later, they started slow, but it seems like they're getting into a good rhythm in the ACC now. So we'll move on to the NCAA. For you, it's obviously been a great year. I think there's been some fantastic teams. Which team has impressed you the most? Obviously, UConn's sitting at the top with the best record. Is that the team that's impressed you the most, or is that something you expected from them?
Yeah, I never want to say that I am unimpressed by a team that has gone undefeated, but I wouldn't say I'm necessarily surprised by the success of UConn thus far. For them to finish the season on that double-digit winning streak, to capture the national championship last year during the 2025 season, and then return a lot of the same roster, two really excellent transfers in Sarah Williams and Kaylee Heckel, and then an impressive freshman in Blanca Quinones, like them being as successful as they have been is, again, like a testament to the culture and standard that has been set at UConn, but it's not something that if you had told me 12 months ago, like, oh, UConn's going to be 30-0 on February 27th, I'd have been like, yeah, that pretty much makes sense. The team that I think has been the most impressive, I think, relative to expectation is probably Vanderbilt, incidentally coached by an alum of UConn and Shea Ralph, who played for Gino Auriemma. This is a team that lost two of its leading scorers in the transfer portal last year, didn't have a lot of high-profile names coming into their program. Their best freshman actually wasn't even ranked in the top 100 freshmen nationally, which is insane to think about considering how Aubrey Galvin has performed this season for Vanderbilt. But you look at what Michaela Blakes has been able to do as a scorer in the SEC. I think she has the third highest scoring average for an SEC player in NCAA history. She's just been a phenomenal scorer, defender, playmaker. Aubrey has been one of the top 3-point guards in the country. And again, as a freshman who wasn't even on the top 100 freshmen coming into this season. And they've just been a really, really fun team to watch. Incredibly successful team. They're, potentially could get a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, which is a wild thought considering they lost in the first round of last year's NCAA tournament. So it's been a very, very impressive season for Vanderbilt. I think Michaela Blakes is as good as any player in the country right now. And for Shea Ralph to put that all together with all of the departures they had to deal with this offseason has been just a tremendous accomplishment.
Yeah, well, we're going to touch on Vanderbilt a bit later, but since you've brought them up, I think it's the perfect time. That trio, obviously, of Shea Ralph, Michaela Blakes, and Aubrey Galvin. Like you said, Galvin wasn't even ranked, which to me is crazy because when you watch her play, how she plays the game, how resilient she is, how she can move the ball, how she can shoot the ball, it's crazy to think that she wasn't in that list. But for you, Michaela Blake's, the way she's scoring, I think she's just broke or maybe tied one of Caitlin Clark's record, if I'm up to date. Did you expect this from her? Is she sure that she's this good all the time? Or is this kind of a leap that no one expected?
No, I think Michaela Blake's had the type of freshman season that suggested that she could be a really impactful scorer. She set, as you meant, the SEC freshman record in scoring last year, Vanderbilt program scoring record, like a couple game winners for Vanderbilt last year. Like this was always possible for her. I think it's more just, I didn't expect Vanderbilt collectively to be this good, because even when Michaela was this good last year and they were getting, 20-point scoring outings out of Camille Pierre and then Ayanna Moore was an excellent third scorer, the team just wasn't making this kind of impact. And they've gotten much better defensively. Kudos to them. They play at a faster pace. They're more disruptive. The whole team just flows better together. So I think it's, credit to Michaela for helping make her teammates better in a way that necessarily wasn't happening last year. And tons of credit to Shea, who, has taken a team that, again, didn't have the highest of expectations, has, their best big is somebody who didn't play all of last season because of an injury. And again, their starting point guard is a freshman, which usually doesn't work that well for NCAA teams. So yeah, I think Michaela has always had this, I shouldn't say always, but after her freshman season, what she's been able to accomplish this year is well within that trajectory. I think about what that 2028 draft class is going to look like with her and Sarah Strong and, oh my God, all of the other players in that current sophomore class. But the part of Vanderbilt's success that I'm least surprised by is Michaela Blake's. It's everything else around her, I think, that has been the most disparate relative to expectations. Yeah.
So do you think Vanderbilt's a legitimate challenger for the NCAA tournament title? Because obviously they do have to, the chances are it's going to be UConn, South Carolina, the usual suspects. When you match them toe-to-toe with UConn, do you think they can defeat them and take the title, or do you think UConn is pretty much nailed on to get it?
I think UConn is the heavy favorite for the national title because, one, how successful they've been over the course of the regular season, and two, they have a coach who knows how to do this, right? If you look at the top teams in college basketball right now, it's only Gino Auriemma and Don Staley that have won national titles. I guess Kim Mulkey has as well, but I don't really consider LSU to be in the same tier as the rest of them. So I think that experience matters quite a bit. A new coach hasn't won an NCAA title since 2017 when Don Staley added herself to that mix. So experience on the bench really, really matters. And that is something that Vanderbilt doesn't have. Shea Ralph has obviously won titles or, been successful as a player at UConn, but she's never done this as the head coach. And I think that is a big difference to navigate the tournament and make sure that your players are ready for the stage. I think a lot about how UCLA performed last year when they were just gangbusters during the course of the regular season and then get to the Final Four and it looks like the lights were just a little too bright for them. And I could see Vanderbilt getting to a Final Four. I just don't think that this is their year right now to actually win a title because you kind of have to go through some lumps first, generally speaking, before a team can get to that, overall title. I also think their defense isn't quite where it needs to be to win a national championship. If you think about the teams that have won a national title over the last 15 years or so, even the ones that have made the Final Four over the last 15 years or so, giving up as many points per game as Vanderbilt has, there's really only three other teams. It's the Iowa teams with Caitlin Clark. It's the University of Washington team when Kelsey Plum was the leading scorer in college basketball. And then a Notre Dame team when Arike Ogunbowale was starting at shooting guard. So Vanderbilt obviously has that formula in place because they have Michaela Blake, so I think is on par with any of those scorers. But it is a tall order to, get to that next hurdle because those teams that I've listed, only one of them won a national title, right? The other three did not. So I think they're a very capable college basketball team, but I do think they're 1 year away from being the best team in college basketball.
Yeah, so for you, do you think UConn's defense is just going to be too good when you look at the kinds of Sarah Strong, Sarah Williams, even Azzi Fudd is a brilliant defender, especially around the perimeter. Is that just too strong for you then?
Yeah, I think Azzi Fudd's defense has been really overlooked, honestly, this year. And part of it is because, well, she's a fifth-year senior and she's guarding players in college basketball who are significantly younger than her. But hey, take whatever advantages you can when they are presented to you. And I think, we saw this similarly when she played USC earlier this season. I thought Azzi Fudd just had Jazzy Davidson in a headlock all game long. And Michaela Blake's, I should say, much more talented as a scorer than Jazzy Davidson is. Azzi has been so good at reading angles and using her physicality to get into smaller guards. And then beyond her, you have the rim protection of a Sarah Williams, a Sarah Strong. You have, extra guards you can throw at anybody, whether that's KK Arnold or, Kaylee Heckle off the bench. So I do think UConn's defense is an X factor in these situations. I would imagine Vanderbilt to keep it close if they were to play UConn. But again, that experience is just so important in the March and April stages of the Final Four. And I would feel so much better about Vanderbilt if they'd even gotten to a Sweet 16 last year and had just a little bit more of a taste of March. But they just haven't had that much so far.
Yeah, it's an intense time of year. I think you're right. I think experience is going to matter. And I think even Sarah Strong for a sophomore has that experience. So I think that's going to definitely catapult them to the end. And they're my favourites by far as well. But you did mention USC there. Have you been disappointed with them at all this season? Or is the factor that Juju Watkins obviously hasn't played all season, who is an absolute legitimate superstar in the making, and just possibly going to be one of the next best things in the WNBA? Has it been a disappointing year for them, or has the fact that they've been able to build foundations with the kinds of Jazzy Davidson actually been quite uplifting?
What this year has illuminated to me as somebody who watches a lot of USC basketball is that I think we underrated how good Juju Watkins was and all of the things that she was able to do within this system, which looks so clunky without her. And this is not to say that USC lost a lot more talent than just Juju Watkins last year. Kiki Iriafen goes to the WNBA. Their starting center, Rhea Marshall, went to the WNBA. Their starting point guard also graduated. So a lot of changes took place on this USC roster beyond just Juju Watkins being gone for the season. I think Jazzy Davidson's production as a freshman, a lot of people were hoping for sort of a diet Juju Watkins type performance from her. And I think that's what we're getting. But diet is doing a lot of work in this case because she's just not the scorer that Juju was. Juju scored 51 points against a really good Stanford team as a freshman. And I think Jazzy Davidson's career high is still in the 20s. Again, a big gap there. She's been tremendous defensively, really growing as a playmaker. I think there's a lot to work with next season when Juju comes back, when they bring in another number one recruit in Sanaya Hall to create this really wing-heavy lineup that I'm very excited to see. But with USC, I think, at the start of the season, I thought they were relying a little bit too much on their seniors who admittedly are just not going to be part of the team next year, right? London Jones and Cara Dunn, these transfers who came in only for one season. I get if you're trying to win games right now, that's the point. I had hoped that they would just lean in more to their younger players, really explore what Kennedy Smith can do, what Jazzy Davidson can do, what their young bigs like Laura Williams can do, because those are the players who are going to be part of the next great Juju Watkins team. And I think it's just hard in this current age of college basketball to completely punt away on a season, right? You never know, because of the portal, because of all of the player movement that exists in college basketball, who you're going to have next year. So it's hard to say we're just going to focus on building for 2026, 2027 when maybe we're just building a really good center that's going to transfer to Michigan next season. And I understand why they're trying to win a lot of games in the interim, but it's been a tough season to watch for USC because they scheduled so hard thinking that they were going to have a national title contender this season, and they didn't, and that made them struggle a lot during the non-conference season. They struggled a lot during the conference season when Kennedy Smith got hurt because their depth is just almost non-existent. But I think over the last month or so, the strides that Kennedy has taken, the strides that Jazzy has taken, that's something to hopefully hold on to for next year. It's just overall, this has just not been a very fun season to watch for USC. The offense is a struggle. There just isn't as much talent as they thought they were going to have coming in. And unfortunately, that's just one of the realities of college basketball, that things can change in an absolute instant. And hopefully that means that when we start, the next season, that USC looks, again, a complete 180 from what they look like now.
Yeah, but how do you think it works next year when Juju Watkins comes back in and Sanaya Hall? Because obviously Jazzy Davidson's done a lot with the ball in her hands. Does that get put to one side and she becomes more of a defensive option and Juju takes over? Does it work that way? Or do you think they've got to try and integrate both of them into one side?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about how this is all going to work because Juju is a wing, Jazzy is a wing, Sanaya Hall is a wing, Kennedy Smith is a wing, and those are your four best players coming in to next year's team. And, there's a lot of fun things you can do defensively. They're all very switchable. They all can kind of play the same positions offensively, and you can have some fun with that. But also, I do think they need a point guard to really organize what's going to happen. I do think they need a knockdown shooter next to them. I think they need a rim protecting center. Admittedly, that's three different types of players that I've mentioned with those four that are already on the court. So maybe that all comes into one player. I don't know. But I am very interested to see how Lindsay Gottlieb works through all of this. I would imagine that's been occupying a lot of her brain, even as she is coaching this current team that is very different from the one that's going to take the court next year. I still think you put the ball into Juju's hands and you let Jazzy function as a secondary creator, attacking when the defense has already shifted towards Juju. You let her be that primary point of attack defender alongside Kennedy, creating a lot of havoc and then making their offense in transition. When you get into the half court, I think Juju is still the person you're going to want to run things through because of her ability to create her own shot in a way that those others can't. I am excited to see how Jazzy can do in a much scaled back role because she's given so much of responsibility right now, and it's a lot. And it's unfair because USC fans saw Juju do it 2 years ago very well, and the roster around her is not as good. And frankly, she's not as good as Juju, and that's okay. Juju is like a once in a generation type of player, but I think the expectation has been a little bit high on her because her name kind of sounds like Juju and she's in the same uniform. And I think she's done really well into the circumstances, but I'm excited to see what she looks like in a situation that's more like what she was recruited into.
Yeah, and like you say, that she was expecting to come in along Juju Watkins. Like, it wasn't meant to be her taking the sole role. And it's just, I think she's done fantastic. I think it must be a hard place to go. I know the record doesn't show it. She's still put up the numbers and she's put in work both sides of the ball. But like you say, it's just a shame we haven't seen it together. For you, is she freshman of the year or is one Aubrey Galvin going to come along and steal it from her? Do you think she's deserving?
It's a great question. This is actually going to be the subject of a podcast that I'm having on my own show next week.
Oh, fantastic.
So not going to give away everything here.
There you go.
I think it's going to come down to those two. Obviously, Aaliyah Chavez at Oklahoma has had a really great season for the Sooners. Her overtime performance against South Carolina is one of the best performances any freshman has had all season. The volume of responsibility that has been placed on Jazzy Davidson, being the team's leading scorer, shot facilitator, like best defender, all of these things that have been put on her plate, I think that's more of a responsibility than Aubrey has had to deal with, which is why I lean towards Jazzy, even though the efficiency is just not great. Like really not great. She's picking up a little bit, 2-point percentage is creeping towards 50% at least. Threes are very hit or miss. And the free throws, unfortunately, have gone up a little bit. She's closer to like that 76% now. So I am heartened by like the steps that Jazzy has taken forward. And again, just like she has to be the very best. I think there's a stat that she leads USC in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and is the only player in Division I to lead her team in all of those categories. So you get to play next to Michaela Blakes, your life is a little bit easier, right? I think you put Jazzy Davidson next to Michaela Blakes, and this season could have looked like that. So I'm leaning towards Jazzy because she's been able to produce the way she has without a lot of secondary talent around her, all due respect to the rest of the Trojans. Whereas Aubrey is in a more ideal situation. But then again, like Aubrey is a point guard in the SEC, the best conference in the country. Although you could make an argument that maybe the Big Ten is. I don't know. I still lean towards the SEC. And they're a top 5 team, right? And that's a much taller task. So I'm still ruminating on this particular question. It's a very good question. I'm sorry I don't have a more straightforward answer. No. I'm just, delayed a few days here. I'll not spoil it for you. Yeah, I'll not spoil it for you since you mentioned on your podcast. For me, I'm a sucker for an underdog, so I'm going with Aubrey Galvin all the way. But like I say, that is just because she wasn't listed, and I'm not a big fan of people who get put off like that. But I'm so glad she's came in and she's nailed it. She's done so well. But since I don't want to spoil that question for you, you're keeping that for your podcast. I want to throw another one at you because before we came on, I was flicking through X and I was just waiting about. I seen the ACC network had gone to name their player of the year, and it was actually a co-player of the year that ended up going with. It was Hannah Hidalgo and Toby Fournier of Duke, and we'll touch on Duke in a second. I don't like that. I don't like co-player of the year. So I'm gonna put you. I've got my vote. I know who I'm voting for, so I'd like to put it on you. I'd like to say who is your player of the year out of the two of them. Yeah, this is a really tough one because it's, again, how much you value raw statistical production from one player who has to do everything for their team, like the Jazzy Davidson, so to speak. Yeah. And then how much do you value winning and playing in games of real consequence, which Toby's had to do. I think, I'm probably going to stay thematically here and go with Hannah Hidalgo. She's played so many more minutes. The raw production is there. Teams still go after her and defend her like, she is a superstar, like an A1 superstar, and Toby doesn't have to deal with that same sort of defensive pressure because you have to keep an eye on Taina Mayer and Ashlyn Jackson and, the shooting that Duke surrounds all of them with. So, yeah, I think just the statistical season that Hannah Hidalgo has put together, I mean, I realize Notre Dame's probably, 8th in the ACC right now, which is
they're not doing well.
Just an insane thought, considering how this team has sort of dominated the conference in recent years. It's going to be very funny if Notre Dame makes the Sweet 16 this year, and it's like, well, when they made the Sweet 16 last year, it was this massive disappointment, and if they do this year, it'll be just the most successful outcome to the season that they could have possibly had. But no, the way Hannah still affects the game as a scorer, her 3-point percentage is down, sure, but it's not like Toby really makes threes anyway. She's been such a good defender. Really just, again, the only thing Notre Dame has going for it. And I think that level of statistical superiority, it just matters to me, right? Like everything that she's been able to do individually, because like there are players on bad teams who don't put up stats, right? Like that's why the team is bad. And she is still able to produce at a really effective level. And like, Notre Dame has a good win against North Carolina. They have a good win against NC State. Like maybe they'll be productive against Louisville this weekend and, sort of add to Hidalgo's case there. But like, somebody who's averaging, 5.6 steals, 25 points per game, still shooting like 50% from the field, 6 rebounds per game. Like there's just so much Hannah brings to the court. When you're like the leading scorer in your conference, the leading steals getter in the NCAA, it's just too much to turn away, I think, for Hannah.
I mean, that was my vote. I was watching it and I understood what they were saying about Toby because I think she's fantastic and I think her development during the year has been great. And obviously, Duke's at the top of the ACC. But Hannah Hidalgo is ridiculous. Like, the way she plays the game, I don't even know if Notre Dame how well they would have done if she wasn't there. But does that speak volumes about Olivia Miles as well? Because the way they've kind of fell off the cliff, do you think that just shows how good of a player she is as well?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Notre Dame lost so much talent this offseason, not just Olivia Miles. You look at Sonia Citron, maybe the second best rookie in the WNBA this year.
That's fair.
Their entire front court, Maddie Westbelt, Kate Koval, Eliza Carlin, I'm forgetting one more, Leah King. 2 of them are in the WNBA. One of them is at LSU. So, like, just an insane amount of a talent exodus that Notre Dame experienced. I've likened Notre Dame to USC a lot over the course of the season because you have, again, like the Hannah and Jazzy archetypes and then all of the talent that ran away, and we just need to hold on until next year when good things happen again. But yeah, I think Olivia Miles obviously deserves a lot of credit for what she's been able to do in her first year at TCU. I think she could have done this in the WNBA. Frankly, I don't know why she needed this extra year of college basketball. I'm very certain it's because of the paycheck that she got for going to TCU, and kudos to her for getting that 6 to 7 figure bag that happened when she made that move south. But I feel like we've always seen Olivia Miles capable of being this type of pick and roll point guard. She had to share some possessions with Hannah Hidalgo once she came back from her ACL injury. And I think she's more comfortable being the lone ball handler and running the show individually. So it's obviously been a very good fit for her at TCU. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get to see her play with Hannah Hidalgo again because I thought they made just like the most devastating backcourt in the country last year, and that would have been fun to watch again.
Yeah, and I was the same with Olivia Miles. I think you're right. The nil deals definitely talk, especially in women's basketball. Mm-hmm. But I would have loved to see her in the W this year. I really thought she might be nailed to go to the Chicago Sky, even though I don't wish that upon anybody at the minute. I really hope everyone stays away from that franchise.
Maybe that's why she stayed in college.
I mean, yeah, that's probably it. Not the money, just the Chicago Sky.
Chicago's going to draft me. You can't do all that.
I mean, look at Maddie. Like, you were watching it last year, and it was crying out for a wing 3-point shooter, and she was just sitting on the bench for most of it. Haley Van Lith as well. You're seeing the same of her. I know she had her injuries, but she was kind of cursed to a role on the bench as well. And I know Tyler Marsh obviously had his ideas of what he wanted to do, but I couldn't understand when they were crying out for a 3-point shooter. You've got 2 players like that who were sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening in Chicago. I try not to think about it as much as possible, but if Olivia Miles was avoiding the Chicago Sky, again, I agree with all those decisions.
Good on her, Well, now we'll move on to your university then, Duke. Like I say, I had the pleasure of talking to Kyra Elsie, so I've kind of I shouldn't root for anyone on the side as I try and stay unbiased, but it's been hard not to root for Duke this year. They obviously had a really rough start of the year, 4-6, and offensively they really struggled. They couldn't find the rhythm. They've came on, done really well, 21-7 now in the ACC. What is that development for you? Because like I say, I thought offensively it was where they were struggled, but defensively they've really seemed to get sound as well. Where do you think the improvement has sparked this from?
To me, it's really been a defensive improvement. I know that and part of it is just the struggle, I should say. Sorry. The schedule was so much harder at the start of the season than it is now. They played LSU, South Carolina, UCLA, all within. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did they play South Carolina or was it? They didn't play. They played. Yeah, they played UCLA. Sorry, I'm forgetting who they played actually in the players there. Yeah, it was South Carolina, UCLA, and LSU. They also played good Baylor team, and maybe that's a game that you look back that they should have won in hindsight. But the other three, I still don't think they're as good as those three things. They just haven't played them in this portion of the year relative to when they played them in November and December. So a part of it is, Carol Lawson being very ambitious and scheduling very difficult non-conference slate. And I think, their starting lineup wasn't really amplifying all of their players at the start of the season when they had Jaden Donovan in there. There was just a huge lack of spacing because she's not really a three-point shooter. Toby Fournier is not really a three-point shooter. Neither is Delaney Thomas. And everything was getting really crowded in the paint, and it was much easier for opposing teams to defend Duke. You replace Jaden Donovan with Riley Nelson. All of a sudden, that opens things up quite a bit because I think Riley's been one of the better three-point shooters in the ACC. A little bit of a slump of late, but during that, 17-game win streak, a lot of big shots going in for Riley Nelson. So it's a combination of things. I think their offensive balance makes it easier for them to have good shots and then not get beaten in transition defense. And then just collectively, they've bought more into Carol Lawson's defensive identity, and having Ariana Robertson back really helps with that because, she's that big center that they've sort of needed to help with her rim protection. I really think a lot of Duke's success, unfortunately, is just a product of the ACC being kind of terrible this year. And they won all the games that they were supposed to win. Not everybody does, right? Everybody has a bad night one of these nights, and Duke, for the majority of the ACC season, did not have any of those bad nights up until they went into Clemson and lost that game over the weekend. So credit to their consistency. They have a very senior-heavy lineup with Taina Mayer and Ashlyn Jackson, in that backcourt, who are both very experienced, very capable of helping to settle Duke down, over the ups and downs of this season. I'm just not a believer that this is a team on the same tier as Vanderbilt or Michigan or LSU or, the other de facto top teams that we're really talking about, like UCLA, South Carolina. I think they've done well to win an ACC that's just not super deep. Credit to them. I think it would have been really cool if they'd gone undefeated in the ACC, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. And I think that because of the way they play, they're always going to be in the game against very good teams because they slow the possessions down. It's never a very comfortable margin of victory. We saw this against South Carolina last year in the Elite Eight, where I think South Carolina was a lot better than Duke, more than 3 to 4 points better than Duke. But because of the way Duke plays, you just sort of grind them down. So I think this is a team that's, again, going to top out sort of at a Sweet 16 Elite Eight. And again, that's really good for them because I don't think they're talented enough to beat the other teams. So they're sort of maximizing their talent. It's just a matter of when do they get the one really great perimeter scorer who can unlock that offense and really propel them to that next level.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned Taina Mayer there as well. And I think she's developed a lot this year, and I've really liked the way she's played, especially with the shooting. Do you think that will be a problem when it comes to the NCAA tournament, though? When she comes matched up against a more efficient guard and defensively sound guard, is she going to really struggle for Duke?
Yeah, I was already kind of disappointed with the way she handled herself against Clemson. Mia Moore was just getting into her dribble really easily. The way that game was officiated, I'm going to sound like a total Duke homer, and I am. I think made it easier for Clemson to win, personally. But, they got called for one foul in the entire second half. It was obscene. So I think Taina Mayer's handle is something that still needs a little bit of fine-tuning, and unfortunately there's really not much time for that to happen before the tournament. But, the most interesting thing to me with Duke, and I realized this wasn't on her outline or anything, but Carol Lawson, coach of the U.S. women's national team, they will be having World Cup qualifying during March. So she will potentially be leaving the ACC tournament early to go to this training camp and then coach the qualifiers. And she's going to miss, part of the preparation period for the tournament, part of the ACC tournament, potentially even Selection Sunday, depending on how long she stays at the qualifying tournament. That is an incredible juggling act for one coach at this time of year. I wish she would have just delegated it to the assistant coaches on the staff, because Spoiler alert, the USA has already qualified for the World Cup and doesn't actually need to do very well in this tournament. So I'm just fascinated by Kara Lawson taking on all of these responsibilities all at once. And I hope that Duke doesn't suffer from like a lack of focus in any one direction. I realize like that's part of what the staff is for. Like you mentioned, you talked to Kyra Elsie, but like even Tia Jackson, who's one of Kara's assistants, is going to the World Cup qualifying tournament. So there's a lot of double duty happening, and I think this is a team that needs a really specific game plan to succeed in March. So I hope that there are no balls dropped, so to speak, based on all of the responsibilities that Kara Lawson is juggling at this point of the year.
Yeah, well, similar things happen in British basketball where one of our coaches has the GB job and he's got a job in the men's league.
Okay.
And for me, it's definitely affected it, like the preparation for the season. Do you think it's possible for Kara Lawson to juggle both jobs like that? Because like you say, she's going to be gone for the busiest month of the year. This tournament, I believe, starts on March 18th.
Right.
Is it possible to juggle that? Or
I
Duke
think
definitely going to suffer?
I think it's possible to juggle both. Like Dawn Staley has done this 2 Olympic cycles ago. But what Dawn Staley did was she let Cheryl Reeve handle the qualifying tournament during the NCAA season, which Kara Lawson is not doing. So that's, to me, the major difference is understanding where your limitations are and saying, hey, I have an assistant coaching staff of the most capable coaches in the WNBA. One of them can handle a tournament that, again, we don't have to win. So
we qualified.
That is where I see the disconnect is she's trying to just do everything. And sometimes you have to realize like the best thing you can do is lean on the people who are assigned to help you. March is the most important time for Duke. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Focus on your primary job here and let Stephanie White or, Natalie Nakase handle the Puerto Rico tournament. I'm just, again, super surprised that this is a decision that she's made and this is a decision that Duke is allowing her to make because like you want to win an ACC tournament title. You probably are the favorites to win the ACC tournament title. And if Kara Lawson has her eye on like training camp in Miami, Puerto Rico, it's going to be a lot harder for that to happen.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, and this is not an insult towards Kara Lawson, but I can't imagine her giving up much control. She seems like she wants to have a handle on everything. And she's a great coach, and she really is, but I think maybe stubborn might come to mind because she loves to, you can see it on the sideline, like you can see her controlling every aspect, and you can see that's why a defensive side is so great, because she wants to dictate everything, and to be fair to her, she does it with great effect, but I'm with you, maybe this is a step too far, and she maybe doesn't have to go along to that, but, I mean, who are we? What do we know in this day and age?
Yeah, seriously.
So, once the season's over, it's coming pretty close, and for anyone that doesn't keep up as much with women's basketball, there's obviously a lot going on in the WNBA at the minute with the collective bargaining agreement, and that's very much up in the air still. But the plan that is out, if it can be agreed soon, is that draft night and free agency is very close together, so maybe teams can't plan as well for free agency. But if they can, and they've got the players they want to draft in place, which player for you is most ready to transition into the WNBA?
Yeah, I think Olivia Miles, as we mentioned earlier, just has a very pro-ready type of game. I mean, she can run a pick and roll better than probably half the point guards in the WNBA already. And that's no slight to them. It's just the passing skill that Olivia has. So I'm very excited to see her at the WNBA level. I think AZ Fudd is another very plug-and-play type of player because she is such a good shooter. She can shoot off of movement. She handles herself well defensively. So whoever drafts her will just, I think, very easily be able to slot her in at the 2 and just know that like that is somebody that defenses have to guard because, again, this might sound hyperbolic, but she has one of the best jump shots I've ever seen. Just technically, it's beautiful. And that's not just me saying that. That's like Stephen Curry saying that it's the most perfect jump shot that he's ever seen. So those two, I think, are going to have a probably relatively easy transition to the WNBA. As easy as one can be, going from college to the professional level with all of the extra drama that is going to be associated with the start of this WNBA season. So I'm very excited for those two. I think there's a lot of players in college who could get to be good in the WNBA, but it's going to require sort of like a reassessment of how they're going to function at that level. Like Lauren Betts, best defensive player, I think, in college basketball, best paint defender at very least in college basketball. But how does that work in the WNBA where you can't play 3 seconds in the paint, right? Like you have to move around a little bit more. So how is she going to translate that with her mobility? Very interested to see how that works. So I think it's going to work. She's massive physical presence, such a smart defender. I think she's honestly underrated as a defender. We talk so much about like how the offense can look a little clunky, but her defense is the reason why UCLA is what it is, I think, more than anything. So, just interested to see how that looks. Flau'jae Johnson has always sort of been like a complimentary player at LSU. I wonder how a WNBA team is going to like coax out her best habits because, she's like very flashy and like kind of goes for the big play on defense as opposed to like staying solid on her matchup and the passes that she makes in transition. Like it all works for LSU. I think it's great part of the college basketball product, but like how do we again sort of fine tune those edges to make her a more productive professional basketball player? This is an interesting class because I don't think there is a no-brainer superstar like we've had in previous seasons. Like the last 3 drafts went in thinking Leah Boston, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, they're going to be among the best players in the WNBA very soon. And
yeah,
we've been proven right about all of those. I don't think 2026 has that, but there are a lot of interesting players who could be productive WNBA players. It's going to matter a lot, like where they go, how they fit, and what they're able to do with their coaches.
Yeah, so do you think this pick down, because obviously the Dallas Wings have again got the number 1 pick, do you think this pick doesn't come down to talent, it comes down to fit? Because like you said, they've got Paige Beckers who, if you can make the pick around her, great, the Dallas Wings will become great. Do you think that means they're going to go for a big in this draft, or do you think maybe there are a lot of people suggesting online that Azzi Fudd should go there for obvious reasons with Paige Beckers? Which is maybe the romantics out there that really like that.
Right,
is that the best fit for Dallas, or do you think maybe it should be the bigs over that?
The beauty of Paige Beckers is that I think you can make an argument for any player to fit next to her because she is so much of a chameleon in terms of how she can play the game. She can be with the ball in her hands, play off the ball, whether she's a 1, 2, or 3. Like I think all of those are reasonable archetypes for her position. If you're the Wings, you're hoping that this is the last time that you're picking this high in the draft, right? Like you want to be good this year. So to me, it's just get as talented of a player as you possibly can. And I think that the most talented player is Awa Pham in this class, just like what she can do. She's so young, so much potential and already producing. I think she's in Euro Cup this year, but she played a couple EuroLeague games last year. Especially after seeing what Dominique Malonga was able to do in the second half of her season, I would find it really hard to not pick Awa Pham, even with all of the Azzi Fudd buzz. So that's the direction I would go. I know that their head coach has made a mark of, when he was an NCAA coach, his advantage was basically recruiting international players. So he's very familiar with the international game. They've spent a lot of time in Spain scouting Awa, Kurt Miller, and Jose Fernandez. Like it's very well documented. They post about it on Instagram all the time. So like it's a person that they've been looking at. They've also obviously been in a lot of UConn games. So yeah, I think you have to take the long-term view here because this is your only chance to really get a superstar type player. And for as good as I think AZ and Olivia can be, I don't think they're going to be like the best player on a championship team or even the second best player on a championship team. Whereas like Awa could be a 1 or a 1A at some point down the line.
And I think as well, if anyone has watched Unrivaled this year, I think Breeze with Paige Beckers and Dominic Malonga, you kind of have a small sample size of what, I know that's 3v3 over there, but you have a small sample size of what Beckers could be with someone like that along her. And I'm with you. Awa Pham, I watched her against Great Britain in the Eurobasket last year. In that Spanish national team, it is so young, and some of their players are so good. The way they move the ball is so energetic. And her herself, I think, alongside Paige Beckers, is an absolute fantastic fit. So I'm with you. I think that's the best way for Dallas to go. So just to finish off, if you're all right with this, I'd love to hear your starting 5 of the year. So out of the whole... I know it's a lot of players to pick from. I know it's a big pool. It's easier when you talk about the W or the NBA. But I'd love to know, for you, it doesn't have to be the 5 best players. It can be the 5 best fit or the 5 most you enjoy. It's totally your reign to pick that. So, yeah, but I'd love to hear it.
Let's think about this. Okay. I would go with Olivia Miles at the 1. Michaela Blake is at the 2. Gianna Neepkins at the 3. Sarah Strong at the 4. And, I don't want to double dip on UCLA here, so let's see if I can reassess real quick. Let's see. You know what? Forget Neepkins. We'll put Madison Booker at the 3 and then Lauren Betts at the 5.
Yeah, that's a pretty good team, by the way. That's not bad at all, is it? That's the good thing about college. You're not going to get it very wrong. Well, no, that's the interrogation over, so thank you so much, Sabreena. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So for anyone who is an Athletic subscriber or wants to subscribe to the Athletic, Sabreena Merchant does some fantastic work over there, especially on the WNBA and the NCAA college side. So again, thank you very much, Sabreena. I think it's been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, thank you. And anyone who's enjoyed the show, a little announcement, this is now going to become a women's basketball podcast. We're going to avoid moving on to the men's side because a few things lately have touched a nerve, so I'm going to stick to the women's side. So, yes, look forward to that. Like, share, subscribe if you can, and I hope you've enjoyed the podcast. Thanks, everyone.